guys.
Welcome to Dungeon Date, our one-on-one Dungeons & Dragons live play. I'm Christian Hoffer.
I'm Darcie Hoffer.
And we are a married couple. Dungeons & Dragons has done a lot for our relationship. So we thought that this would be a good way to show how couples can play Dungeons & Dragons just with each other.
Yep.
I guess we will dive right in. So, Darcie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your character?
I am going to be playing Estelia. She is a rogue from a noble elf house. However, she is only half elf. Average height, a little bit taller than the average human, but shorter than the average elf. Long blonde hair. Pretty basic leather armor. Nothing too flashy. Doesn't want to draw attention to herself.
How old is she?
She's 28.
What color eyes?
She has green eyes.
She's 28?
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit older than I expected.
Oh, yeah.
Yikes. So you'll be starting off at level 2. We are utilizing sidekicks, which is something from the D&D Essential Kit. So over the course of this adventure, Darcie will meet allies that she will be able to control. They have their own motivations and their own actions and abilities.
Okay.
And in combat, how that will work is she will be limited to a total of 3 sidekicks that she can use at any given time. And at the start of combat, she will roll a d4, and the number on the d4 will determine how many people she can control. If she rolls a 1, she can only control Estelia, but this gives her some autonomy to control her team, but also keeping in mind that these are characters who aren't necessarily loyal or will not follow her suicide commands. So, let's get started.
Okay.
So we will open tonight's adventure. You are sailing on your father's ship, the Seahorse. Okay. It has been 6 years since you have last been home to the port city of Olafaren, which is your house's city of seat of power. So 6 years ago, of course, was when your mother and your grandfather were killed by assassins who were never caught. To this day, we don't know if it was a rival house that did this, or if it were some outside party, or even if it was somebody within your own house who did it. Which is why your father sent you to be trained, sent you to your remote vacation home in the middle of the ocean, as you are part of one of the 5 houses of House Olafaren, the ruling houses, not the 5 houses of Olafaren, the 5 houses of Erde, which are the, Erde is a small country, very wealthy though, and is controlled exclusively by these 5 houses, each of which have their own specialty. Your house, House Olafaren, controls the seas and the ports. So you went away for 6 years with next to no company, save for 2 people. One was your childhood friend Ellie, and the second was Vizen, your father's uncle and formerly the head blade of House Olafaren. For 6 years you trained under him, learning the ways of courtly intrigue, of spying, of sneaking, of how to be a knife in the dark. And recently, you were given a ceremonial dagger, and you were made into a blade of House Olafaren. So your father has now come to retrieve you, and you are sailing into the port. As you enter the port, the harbor that Olafaren sits on, you see 2 large lighthouses, both of which are under construction. They both appear to be shaped they look like when they're complete, they will both take the form of some sort of person standing 50, 100 feet up in the air. Further back in the distance, you can see a single twinkling light far off, almost looking like a star, but you know it to be the divine flame, the holy light that keeps all of Erde safe from the ever-dark tyrant and the monsters that once plagued this country. It sits hundreds of miles away in the capital city of Nectar, at the top of a spire that sits many miles up. So, you are standing, watching it, and your father approaches you. Your father's name is Assos. He is a older elf. He has a very well-trimmed beard, which in and of itself is unusual for elves. Elves do not typically have facial hair, but he has grown it out in recent years. Mind you, it's no longer... I have a longer beard than he does. He has long hair that is almost silver at this point. It wasn't too long ago, only... you have watched his hair rapidly turn to silver over the last 6 years. Just a few years ago, it was very dark, almost black. In private, he's a lot more jovial and kind-hearted, but right now, in the middle of his men, standing on public, standing next to his bastard daughter, he seems distanced and emotionless. What would you like to do?
I'd like to approach him as well and make some common small talk, asking him about how the city has changed since I left.
He looks and he's like, the city, more or less, is the same. We have increased the number of guards that patrol our streets, in particular our holdings, to make sure that nothing that happened 6 years ago will ever happen again. And of course, our recent civic project, and he points to the 2 lighthouses. When those are complete, those will bear the likenesses of your grandfather, and he points to the one on the left, which you can actually see your family's manor sitting on a small cliffside, not too far away from it, and your teacher to the right. And he points to the other lighthouse that's on the other side of the harbor.
So, why did you come to get me now after these 6 years? What's changed?
Well, you are a blade now. There is no denying that you have a use to the family. Anyone who doubted my reasons for bringing you home with me and keeping you as a member of our house, that will be silenced now. I want you back. I want you to learn the way of our house. I want you to protect our house. I want you to show your worth to the house. Not necessarily for me. I know how much you are worth. I know your value. But to those who would doubt you, who would doubt me, I need you to be a pillar of strength for our family. You one day will be the guard of House Olafaren, the head of all the blades, in charge of protecting this entire family from whatever dangers would befell it. And it is time for you to take your first steps in that journey. You will report, of course, to your uncle, Tarl. You know, of course, that even though your father refers to him as your uncle, he is not actually your uncle. He's your sister's uncle, as he is the brother of Assos's wife, and not your mother.
Okay.
So you will work under Tarl, and he knows to put you on important tasks. So I'm sure he will find the best use for your abilities.
Okay.
And behind you, you hear a squeaky voice say, And what shall I do, master? You turn and you see a little kobold, no more than 3 foot tall, wearing a oversized piece of like leather vest, and he's holding a small spear and a dagger that looks like a sword on his belt. On his snout, he has red scales, but on the end of his snout are what appear to be whiskers, which have been waxed together to almost form a little mustache. This is Teef, a kobold who you've known now for about 3 or 4 days after you and your family, after your family ship restocked at what you thought was an abandoned island and were immediately beset upon by a tribe of kobolds. You quickly defeated them. We're talking minutes, if that. No injuries on your side. Dozens of kobolds laid injured. The guards mainly seemed bemused and tried to spare as many limbs as they could. And the kobolds, in order to ensure that their tribe would not be harmed, sent Teef along with the journey to act as a hostage, despite the fact that your father has absolutely no desire about this whatsoever.
Cool.
And so he looks and he's like, what task shall I be given, your grace? And you see your father just shut his eyes, and he's just like, I have no task for you, Teef. Frankly, I don't even know what to do with you. You are a kobold coming to my city. I'm bringing back and he looks at you, and he's like, I'm bringing back my bastard daughter and a kobold. And he just kind of... So, is there anything you'd like to say to Teef?
Teef, I guess in order to really figure out what we're gonna do with you, what are you good at? Like, have I noticed he's been good at anything in the last 3 days?
He kind of looks and he's like, I have many talents. Mm-hmm. I can look into the eyes of people and see their intent.
Oh, okay.
Whether they wish to kill me or not.
Just whether they want to kill you or, like...
They always want to kill me. And he kind of thinks for a second. He's like, I am very persuasive at having people not kill me.
Okay.
And he kind of thinks for a little while longer, as if he's like, he pulls out a small flute, and he's like, I am very good at playing this. And he plays.
Oh, you're a bard?
He looks at you and he's like, a bard? What is a bard?
You're not a bard? You don't play music?
Bard. I play music. The flute.
Yes.
And he does a little like the little Batman symbol.
Does anything happen when you play music? Do people feel inspired? Or...
And he leans in and he's like, they typically do not wish to kill me. Teef is very useful at staying alive.
Cool. Well, Dad, what do you want to do with him?
And he's like, and us is just like, it's like, maybe we'll give him to Tarl. Maybe Tarl will find a use for him. I think you would enjoy that, wouldn't you? Watching Tarl deal with him, not you.
Yeah, I mean, do my job, keep my head down.
Sounds like you will make a good blade.
Hope so.
So you go in and your ship, the Seahorse, which is the finest ship in all of Verde. It is absolutely stunning, and of course it has what is colloquially known as Saint Seahorse at its helm, which is the sign of House Olafaren.
Okay.
And you head to your family's port. Now, you would know this. Olafros has 6 different ports, one for each of the 5 houses,
Okay.
and one which is known as the Port of Neutrality, which is where all the non-aligned ships and foreign ships come in. There aren't too many non-aligned ships. Most people have some sort of... anybody who has a ship usually has an allegiance to one of the 5 houses. But there are some who choose not to play the great game, and they go to the somewhat dingy Port of Neutrality. But you go to House Olafaran's port, and there is a small welcoming party waiting for you.
Okay.
That consists of 3 people, 2 of whom you know, and 1 that you don't. The first is a very stocky elf, known as Tarl the Blackhammer. He actually has a thick, even thicker than your father's, but still probably about this length, beard. Also very black. And you see that he has a large warhammer on his back. And he is the guard of House Olafaren. He is the person who you will be directly reporting to as a new blade of House Hoffer. You also see your best friend Ellie. Ellie is a human. She's wearing the pale gray robes of an Ardent of the Cold Lord, and you haven't seen her in 2 years because although she joined you in exile, you sent her off to become an Ardent for the Cold Lord, which is your house's patron god. She has thick, bushy blonde hair, and as you approach, you can see that it is clasped together and tied up, and on the back is a clasp bearing the symbol of the Saint Seahorse. And it was given to Ellie by your mother shortly before she passed away. The third person is someone you don't recognize. He is a half-elf like yourself, and he is noticeably muscular. He's wearing studded leather armor that appears to be the standard issue armor given to guards of House Olafaren, or to soldiers. I guess guards wouldn't be, since we're using that for something else. He's dark-skinned, has short, curly, dark hair, and you notice that there appears to be a fresh scar that has, scabbed up, that runs from here down the side of his face, just missing his eye. So there's also several standard soldiers there, and they're all waiting for you as the ship comes in and docks at the port. So a boarding plank is quickly pushed aside, and you step foot. Following your father, you step foot in your hometown for the first time in about 6 years. So, Ellie walks up to you and warmly greets you with a hug. She holds you and she's just like, it is so good to see you, E. It is absolutely wonderful. It's been so long. I truly tried to come out. I did, but unfortunately, the high priests of the Cold Lord, they do not make exceptions even for the best friend of a member of House Olafaren, it seems.
It's okay. I understand.
And she's like, so I take it the island hasn't changed too much since I last left you?
Not at all.
And then she looks behind you and she's like, or maybe it has? Who is this? And you turn and you see Teef standing at attention holding his little spear.
This is Teef.
And
I'm not quite sure how he ended up with us.
And he steps forward. He's like, I am a hostage of the mighty Lord Ossos. I exist here to ensure my tribe's safety.
Yeah, that's what he says.
And he's like, Ossos, does he take hostages now? That would be a new... Oh. And he's... The red scales are very cute.
Hear that, Teef? You're cute.
And he's like, I have been told that I am a very attractive kobold amongst my egg mates. And he kind of, like, he starts, like, spinning his little mustache whiskers and, like, twirling them a little bit. You notice that Ossos, as soon as he stepped off, was immediately taken aside by Tarl. And this young man who's about your age is kind of like standing there impatiently, like just far away enough so that he's can't hear what's being said, but it clearly looks like he's trying to get your father's attention.
So he's trying to get my father's attention without being involved in the rival?
It looks like your father's having a private conversation with Tarl.
Okay.
But he's like this person is clearly trying to get your father's attention, like catch his eye without actually like saying anything.
I will recognize that, but I'm gonna walk towards Tarl to give my respects, given that he's my new commander.
And so you stand there, and the conversation immediately halts as Tarl like looks back at you, and he's like, "Hello, girl."
Tarl, and I bow and show respect to him.
And he kind of like doesn't look too pleased to see you. And also it's just like, Tarl, show some proper decorum to one of your new blades. Why don't you bring her in into what you just told me? Tarl's like, this doesn't need to concern the girl. And he's like, you mean it doesn't need to concern one of your blades trained by your predecessor? And he kind of looks and he's like, and he looks at you and he's like, well, something of House Olafaren has been stolen.
Okay.
It happened last night. We don't know who did it. We're fairly certain it hasn't left the city, but as soon as we found out, the city's on a bit of a very subtle crackdown. No cart or person leaves the city without being checked, whether they know it or not.
What was the item?
That's none of your concern.
Well, if I'm to help you with this mission and return the item, I should know what I'm looking for.
And he's like, I told you, girl, it is none of your concern, and I'm not even sure that you'll be participating in retrieving it. And Ossos puts his hand on Tarl's shoulder and it's like, actually, I think this would be a fantastic idea for you to gauge Estelia's abilities. See if she can bring home this weapon. And Ossos turns to you and he's like, we can't speak in the open about it, but it is a weapon of potentially great power. If it fell into one of the other house's hands, that bodes poorly for our house in more ways than one. And it may even bode poorly for whoever holds it.
Just so I understand the city, are all the houses in the one city?
So,
are there different areas?
So each of the houses has its own presence and its own estate here. Olafaren is a bit unique in that of the three major cities, most of the other two cities are mostly equally divvied up, where no one house holds like a significant, overwhelming level of influence.
Okay.
But Ulfrost, being the major port city, is a bit different. So this very much is your family's city, although the other four houses do all, they all have business here. They're what they do involves the port, so they of course have a presence here. But this is really your family's seat of power, which
Gotcha.
makes this crime a little even more audacious in some respects.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, not to disrespect you, Tarl, however, I believe this gentleman over here has been trying to get either you or father's attention.
Oh, and he's like, Ossos, this is, Kieran. This is the boy that,
Kieran.
your brother kicked out of Nectar and Ossos immediately smiles. He's like, oh, so you're the erstwhile lovebird, and you notice that Kieran seems a bit flustered by this. He's like, I wish to pledge myself to House Olafaren. I can be of great use to the house. I wish to show my worth to you and gain rank by becoming a member of House Olafaren. And Ossos just kind of laughs, and he's like, I'm sure you do wish to become a member of House Olafaren, but maybe in a more, shall we say, literal sense. And he seems even more flustered by this statement. And he turns to Tarl. He's like, so, what do you think of him? And Tarl is like, good with a sword, stubborn, headstrong, wants to prove himself, maybe a bit too much. And Ossos kind of laughs. He's like, sounds a lot like you, Tarl, back in the day. And he looks at Kieran, and then he looks at you, and he's like, Kieran, if you wish to prove yourself and show your worth to this family, you can work under Estelia on this new mission. Estelia is a blade of House Olafaren, although she may not wish to announce that publicly. So you will be charged with protecting my daughter. And he's like, I thought you only had one daughter. And he's like, well, that is what my wife would say, but I in fact have two. This is Estelia. She is my second-born daughter. And he turns and goes, by the way, your sister is likely, at the estate house. She's been taking a greater role with the house in recent years, and she's probably attending to some business or another up at the house. If you wish to go and say hello to your older sister,
That would be wonderful.
So Tarl informs you very begrudgingly. He does not look happy about this at all. That the ship that had this weapon came into the port of neutrality the previous night, so earlier this morning, and it the weapon was stolen, and the guards who were assigned to guard it were all found incapacitated in some way. So he suggests that if you wish to find clues or see if you can find something that I missed, you may go to the port of neutrality. And he kind of clicks his fingers at one of the guards and tells them to, send word that you are coming to check the port. And this guard immediately rushes off.
I think that I will go ahead and check out the boat before I go say hi to my sister.
Okay. As you begin to walk off, you hear your father go, "Oh, one more thing." And he turns and he kind of crouches down and he goes, "Teeth, my daughter may be in great peril. I need you to protect her because I just feel that this boy can't do it alone." And Kieran's like, and like, he goes to like protest, and Ossos just immediately like holds up a hand to shut him up. He's like, "Teeth, do you think that you can serve as the protector for my daughter?" And Teef stands up really straight and sticks his snout out so that, his little mustache is very visible. And he kind of salutes with his spear and he goes, "Teef will protect your daughter. Teef will do whatever he must to protect his tribe." And he's like, yes, your tribe, of course. And Ossos goes, "Enjoy." And, you rarely see your father smile in public, but at this, he just seems absolutely, kind of tickled by the fact that he has found a reason to dump off Teef.
I'll give him a look like I know what you just did and just walk away.
And so Ellie walks up to you and she's like, "Well, I actually have the day off of my duties, so I guess I can accompany you as well."
Would be some very welcome company.
Obviously, yes. And she's like, and she kind of like takes you by the arm, and she's like, "So much has happened while you're gone." And she proceeds to inform you of some of the idle gossip that has gone on, and it's all just like very piddly stuff, mainly catching you up on some of your childhood friends and stuff like that, several of whom are actually in the city and have also recently taken larger roles in their respective houses.
Okay.
So the Port of Neutrality. It is located on the far, this would be the western side of the port of Olafaren. Basically, it's the farthest port away from House Olafaren's house. It is much dingier than House Olafaren's port. It's you see just like shady looking people kind of like loitering around. There's only 2 or 3 boats that are there, and you see like several like dingy taverns and inns and like sketchy magic shops are kind of all lined the street that leads in and out of the Port of Neutrality.
I guess I'll admire the sights as I walk.
And like Ellie is kind of like pushing you along. She's like, "You've always have been attracted to the seedier things, haven't you, Estelia?"
It's where the entertainment is.
And as you say that, a person comes flying out of a window of like a tavern, and you just hear it shatter, and he's just like lying like right in front of you, like face down, butt up in the air. And
I'll check and see if he's breathing.
Okay, give me a medicine check.
Oh gosh.
First roll of the campaign.
Bear with me as I deal with this tablet. What kind of roll? Medicine?
Medicine, yeah.
Ooh, only a +2. Ooh, 8.
You're like, you turn and you're like trying to check for a pulse, and like you're like starting to get noticeably pale because you don't think he's alive, and like
that dice gets put away for a minute.
Ellie kind of like leans down next to you and like just goes immediately like checks, kind of like if I were to check for a pulse and had no idea where to look. And she's like, "Oh, he's still alive. He's just
okay, cool.
Very drunk."
Oh, well, let's let him sleep it off, and I'll just step over him then, pretending that I didn't just think he was dead.
So
totally thought he was dead.
So you make your way to a small single-mast skiff.
Okay.
That is clearly made for small distance travel. unlike the seahorse, which could cross the entire ocean and has many times, this one probably couldn't make journeys more than 4 or 5 days. What would you like to do?
Are there people around, guards securing the scene?
There are two guards. You see that just before the guard that Tarl sent to inform you is like very winded and like has like just informed the guards that are kind of like securing the scene. You also see a blue-skinned harbor master or a port master, and he introduces himself as Fisselfish.
Fisselfish?
Fisselfish.
F-I?
Fissel Fish.
Oh, okay, cool. So he sounds good. So he's the port master?
Mm-hmm.
Have I met him before?
No, you've never met him.
Cool. So I guess, they were notified we were coming, so I'll just start walking towards the ship.
Mm-hmm. And the two guards immediately, they let you pass. You see several members of the ship's crew, and they're all kind of like sitting there and it looks like somebody's just like finished talking to them, and so they're all just kind of like sitting around. A couple of them have like blankets over them. They all look kind of like, you look at them and they seem more tired than anything.
How many of them were there?
5.
Okay, they just appear tired.
3 of them do. Actually, there's another one who's got like a bag of something cold pressed up against his head. And there's a 5th one who appears to have something wrapped, like a bandage wrapped around his arm.
Oh. So some of them were hurt. I'm going to walk up to the tired part of the crew and ask them to tell me what happened on their account.
And they all kind of like look at each other sheepishly, and they're like, we were just looking around, keeping watch as one does, and suddenly I just overcame with, very, so tired, and I just couldn't keep my eyes open. I just almost instantly fell asleep. And he like points to another one. He's like, he fell off the boat. And like he's
the one of the ones that was tired?
Yeah, one of the ones who's tired. And you see that he's just like still damp.
Did you guys all fall asleep around the same time?
And they all kind of look at each other. I'm guessing.
Did you guys eat or drink something different than the other 2?
No. We just kind of got in. We were on duty until the morning. We weren't supposed to leave the ship until the morning, till the cargo was secured.
What was the cargo?
Don't know. It's in a box.
Do you guys have a list of items on board?
We were just assigned to carry the box.
You guys don't have, the captain doesn't have a list.
And he's like, well, no, because he's like, no one was supposed to know that we were here.
Gotcha. Cool. I'm gonna go talk to the guy with the head wound.
Okay. So he was one of the people who was actually assigned to guard the cargo. So he was under the deck. He was actually in the cargo hold when the thing went missing. And so he notes that, they had their lanterns and stuff, up, and they were kind of guarding the door, and suddenly everything went dark. And suddenly he was hit in the back of the head, and that's all he knows.
So, like, your light went out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, they didn't go out, just suddenly the room went dark.
Okay. And it was you and this gentleman with the arm wound that were down there?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing happened to both of you?
He's like, actually, I kind of, I guess, fell asleep. when everything went dark, I started kind of throwing haymakers left and right, trying to get him, and I did. I totally punched him in the face. Okay. And then he sliced me, and then I woke up with a bunch of dried blood on my arm, and the box was open and missing. And he's like, "Do you think the Lord will be upset at us? I mean,
I don't know what it even was yet, but since they're sending me, maybe."
He's like, "Oh," and he like kind of looks down at your ceremonial dagger, and he's like, "Oh shit, you're a blade."
Well, let's just keep that on the down low.
It's like, well, if you want to do that, you might want to kind of...
I tuck it underneath my little shawl there. Cool. So let's go show me where, whoever can walk, I guess, show me where this cargo is being held.
So you, they take you into the hull of the ship and the cargo hold, and there is a small, and it actually was a secret room, which is interesting. And so from the front, it just looks like a standard, like, interior wall of the ship. There's no noticeable door there. And he taps on it twice, and it just swings open. And inside, you see an empty room, save for one medium-sized, cargo box.
Okay.
The cargo box has been opened by force. Inside you see hay.
Okay.
And if you wish to examine it more closely, I will need you to make an investigation check.
Okay. About how big was it before I do my search?
How big? It was about 3 feet by 3 feet.
The actual indentation in the hay?
The actual
indentation. Or the box is 3 feet.
It's hard to tell what was inside the hay. Like, it's covered from top to bottom. Like, it was filled with hay.
So the box was 3 by 3?
Yeah.
Okay. And it was investigation. Ooh, 21.
With a 21, you notice a couple of interesting things. For one thing, on one of the corners of the lid of the trunk, or of this cargo box, and it was kind of like flipped open, and as you turn over the lid, and it's unmarked, because clearly your father and House Olafaren didn't want anyone to know what was inside, but you do notice some dark, what appears to be dark, dried blood. It does not appear to be the same color as normal blood, like your blood or elvish blood or human blood.
So it's not like a reddish maroon.
Yeah, it's almost black.
And it's just on the corner?
Yes, it's just on the corner, as if like when they were maybe pulling it open, like a splinter of wood got jabbed into their hand. You also, with a 21, you notice a single silver hair is tucked into one of the kind of like one of the cracks in this box. It's long silver hair, probably about your hair length.
Okay.
I'll also say with the 21, so as you flip it open, like flip over the box, you kind of like smell something interesting. And you notice that the box, like one of the port holes that are used as a window, like the sunlight is shining through it, and it appears to be touching the blood, and you just kind of notice like this like very like faint, strange smell that seems to be coming from the blood that was set off by the sunlight.
Okay. How was I able? Well, am I able to see what size the item was?
No, it's very hard to tell.
Okay.
You by what you can tell.
3x3 is pretty big.
Yeah, it could be a lot of things. That box would be enough to hold a weapon, like a full sized like a sword, or maybe
shield or something.
There's a lot of things that could fit in there.
Okay. Anything in the hallway that's out of place?
Make a investigation check.
Oh, and that is good. 11.
Everything looks pretty good, to be honest. Like nothing looks out of place. The main curious thing is, how did this person know that the ship was coming in, and how did they know about the secret hold?
I haven't talked to a captain yet, have I?
The captain actually would be back at your father's house.
Gotcha. Anyone else around?
No.
Okay.
And you do learn from talking to the crew that's there that the captain has been gone. He went off in the middle of the night as soon as they landed to procure transport for their cargo.
So he wasn't even there?
No.
Interesting. Okay. None of those men have any silver hair?
No.
Nothing?
Nope. They all are either pretty burly humans or, there is one half-elf there amongst them.
I'm going to gather them and ask them if they've had any contact with anyone with silver hair.
And they all kind of look at each other and they're like, no, silver hair, that would be pretty easy to recognize. No, I don't recall anyone with silver hair.
Okay. Anyone creeping around?
And
upon arrival?
They all kind of laugh. It's the port to neutrality, sweetie.
That's true.
They're all if you want to ask, you might want to talk to the port master, see if they saw anyone strange.
Okay. I'll walk over to the port master, introduce myself.
He seems very perturbed. And he's like, no one unusual, nothing out of place. This was all very disturbing.
Were you aware that it was coming in?
No, of course not.
No one knew that this ship was coming in on your behalf.
And he's like, we received no prior notice to this. This was, as is typical for the port of neutrality, ships come in, we mark them down, and then they leave, and we mark them down again. That is basically the extent of what I do.
Do you know anyone with any silver hair?
And he kind of looks, it's like, no, I can't say that I know. He's like, listen, I am a loyal member of House Olafaren. I have served your father for many, many years, and it's, I'm very disappointed in myself that something like this happened on my watch.
Well, I appreciate that you will be helpful and bring any further information you may have.
Oh, of course, I would. If I knew anything, I would certainly tell you. A person who bears an uncanny resemblance to the Lord of House Olafaren, only with shorter ears.
Why would you bring that up?
I'm simply noting that I, of course, would tell the daughter of House Olafaren if I knew of anything. I have nothing to hide.
Okay. Well, I will keep that in mind.
Absolutely nothing.
Insight check?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, this keeps locking on me. He bothers me. Let's just go with this one. 18 plus 4.
He's so fucking lying.
Sorry, effing.
You notice, also, so you don't know too much about, the nitty-gritty details of, what a portmaster does, But you do know that a portmaster, especially a portmaster of the Port of Neutrality, wouldn't be wearing the fine clothes that he seems to be wearing either.
So he's gotten his share somehow. Are there any other workers that work for the port area?
There's a few. However, as you talk to all of them, none of them were there when the robbery occurred.
So I'm going to ask all of them similar questions. One, do they know anyone with any silver hair? Whether it's long or short, just silver hair. And two, I'm going to ask them, I'm going to, I guess, try to persuade them to tell me if they've seen the portmaster up to any... Yeah, persuasion plus 20?
They're like, yeah, he takes bribes. So many bribes. So many bribes. I mean, mostly it's to, like, make sure that, like, certain boats aren't marked on the Port of Neutrality. And, like, one of them's like, I was supposed to be working last night, and, he told me, that actually, he found someone to cover my shift. I wasn't going to look a free night off. I get paid the same whether I'm here or not, so I'm not gonna,
How many guards are nearby?
There's a total of 3 guards that are there.
The one that went running that is familiar with my father and knew that I was going, I'm gonna bring him with me. And I've talked to everyone around there.
Yeah.
I am going to ask the portmaster to come with me.
Okay. Where are you taking him?
I'm assuming that we have some sort of area that we talk to people, try to persuade them more effectively.
You could take him into the boat.
Okay. We'll take him into the boat, and I'll bring Teef with me.
Okay.
And tell Teef, look as ferocious as you possibly can.
He bares his teeth, and he's like, oh! He's like, 1 second, and, like, he, like, rushes off, and comes back with 2, like, fresh fish, like, one in each hand, and he's like, I shall use these to great effect.
How about your sword or your spear?
It's like,
weapons.
So he tucks the...
Like, look angry.
He tucks the 2 fish, like, into his belt, and, like, pulls out his dagger and his spear, and he's like,
angrier. Less growling, just
and he
grumpy.
He kind of goes, and like you see just a little bit of smoke come out of his mouth.
Cool. Just look angry. And there you go. Okay, like that. Okay. Let's go.
And Kieran is kind of like, I could probably look more intimidating than.
Well, you can do that too. You need less teaching, though.
Fair point.
Let's go.
Okay.
So I'm going to bring the guard, Kieran, Teef, and Ellie onto the boat. We're going to bring him back into whatever quarters. Yeah. Not his quarters, but like...
You can take him into the secret room.
Yeah, sure. Somewhere that there's not lots of exits or extra stuff that he can grab.
And there's just a box.
Yeah.
So one of the guards, the one guard seems to get what's about to happen here. He brings in a stool. He just kind of like puts it down and points for the portmaster. He's like, this is all very, very peculiar. I've said everything.
I am going to tell Kieran to empty his pockets.
And Kieran's like the portmaster's pocket?
Yeah, the portmaster's pockets.
So he's like, he kind of like looks over and like, he's like, I object. And he's like, Kieran just like goes and he's like, can I punch him? Can I? And he's like, I'm going to punch him. He just,
wait.
And okay.
Don't punch him. Just empty his pockets.
And he's like, oh, okay. And so he's like, goes
we'll just take everything and put it in the box.
He immediately like goes and like stops like an inch from his face and immediately instead just goes and like puts him in like an arm hold and like immediately starts rifling through his things. He does pull out what appears to be a very large purse of gold, as well as a note, the crumpled up piece of paper.
Let's read this note out loud.
So it says, it just lists a time, 1 a.m., and just says, empty the port, 1 a.m., 30 minutes is all I need. And then he's like, 100 more gold if you do.
So I've read that out loud, and I'm just going to look at the postmaster. What would you like to share?
That note was left last night with a bag of 100 gold. I have children. So many children.
So you should know better. You know that if you were to talk to us and tell us if you were struggling, we might be able to help you.
And he's like, no.
Did you ask?
No.
My father is a generous man.
It's like, your father is not a generous man. And he says, but, so all I did was make sure that there were no guards. That's it. I had no idea that what ship they would be coming for or what business they had. If it was, I didn't even know that this ship was for House Olafaren. If your father wanted to keep it safe, he should have just sent it to the regular port. That would have stopped any of this. I am innocent in all of this. I am merely
How
a
was the
victim.
note delivered? Shh. How was the note delivered?
I found it in my office.
Who has access to your office?
Technically no one, but it's just a small, and he kind of like points to like a shack with a single door, and it's like just big enough to hold a desk. That's like, standing on the harbor. He's like, anyone can go in there.
So you don't keep it locked?
At night I do, but I'm sure that someone resourceful.
Yeah. How well is this written?
Give me an investigation check.
17.
With the 17, it seems to be written in block letters. It seems very deliberate. They were deliberately hiding it. You do note, that it's a little bit, a couple of one or two of the words appears to be misspelled, or some of the letters they had difficulty putting out.
Okay, so someone that has some knowledge, but probably not a nobleman or someone that knows language super well. So if you've only got 100 gold from last night, who else have you been bribed, and what other tasks have you done?
He's like, occasionally a captain might come in and simply ask me to leave the ship off the rolls. That's all. Nothing more. That's hardly a crime. And the guards standing there. It's that you have one job, dude. One job. And
Okay.
Teef is like, shall I slit his throat?
No, not yet.
And then he's goes and he takes out one of the fish, and he points at the portmaster and just takes the fish and just goes and the portmaster's
I know, it's grotesque. Okay, is there any other knowledge and information you feel like you should share with us?
I truly, if I would have seen something, I would clearly have told you.
Let's go visit your office then.
Okay.
So our little party, including the dockmaster, we all go to the office so we can look around the office.
And Ellie's the entire time is I do love a good mystery. It's this is so exciting. This is most exciting thing that I've done in the last 2 years.
Oh, Ellie, I've missed your optimism.
She's like, well, when you're, learning about the ways of the Cold Lord all the time. So the office, again, is barely more than a shack.
Yeah.
There are some very poorly, like the books are very clearly, like the notes are very poorly taken.
Yeah.
Give me an investigation check.
Man, lots of investigations.
That's an intrigue campaign.
That's true. 18.
With an 18, you do find another identical bag of 100 more gold. But other than that, you don't see anything else.
Okay. So we'll take that. There's no other papers or anything else.
No, nothing incriminating.
How secure was the lock on the door?
Give me an investigation check.
Ooh, 16?
16, you can clearly tell that it was picked the night before.
Cool.
Twice, actually.
Once for the note, once for delivering the gold. Okay. Well, I guess we'll take your gold, and we're going to take him back to meet with my father.
And he's like, and the guard's like, we really don't need to drag your father into it. We'll let Tarl deal with it.
Let's
instead.
take him to see Tarl.
And
That sounds even better.
He's like, yeah. And like the guard's like, I'll take it from here, Lady Estelia. Okay. Thank you.
How big is this dockmaster? Is it?
No, he's a pretty Weasley looking dude.
Okay, so he can't probably get away from the guard.
No,
cool.
And like and he's like, I'll call for aid, and we'll get this guy taken care of. So thank you very much for your assistance here.
Cool.
Okay.
So
what would you like to do?
I need to go talk to either my father or Tarl. Tarl's probably going to be really grumpy, so let's go see my dad.
Okay.
See what exactly we're looking for.
So you make your way to the Olafaren estate, which is basically its own neighborhood. It's on the far east side of the city, and most of the houses, the house has many employees and retainers, and those who are somehow under your house's influence all tend to live in this very upscale, nice neighborhood. And at its, I don't want to call it the heart, because it's kind of like located on the shoreline, up on a cliff. You see behind a walled enclosure is the house that you grew up in, which is this very fine-looking 3-story manor. Interestingly, with these very large windows that look out towards the sea. There's lots of green space. There's even a small forest within the actual estate. Your father is apparently, catching up on some meetings. You are informed that he is indisposed at the moment, but he will speak to you this evening. However, it is suggested, that you say hello to your sister.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay. So your sister is currently on the second story, and she is in one of the drawing rooms. And your sister, as you enter with this motley collection of an ardent, a half-elf guard, and a kobold who, by this point in time, has eaten the second raw fish. And so it's like literally just like the bones with the fish tail and the fish head. And he kind of like goes, and as he's finishing it, he kind of like very subtly, but not subtly. Actually, not subtly at all, tosses the fish bones like behind one of the plants inside your house. And as you go and make your way in the second story, your sister is sitting at a small desk at the in one of these drawing rooms. And there is a man there, a man that you actually recognize. So when you were a child, you and at various get-togethers and parties, you would spend your time as the highborn children refuse to really interact with a bastard child. You befriended the other, bastard children of the various households, or the children who were so far down the hierarchy, or would never sniff out. They'll never be in charge of their house. Like just so far down the chain. And one of those was a young boy named Charles Vital of House Vital. And you can recognize him. It's been years since you've seen him. He's kind of got a little bit of like roguish handsomeness to him. Like he's got curly black hair that's like not super long, but like just enough that it like forms like kind of like locks. He's got a very well defined chin. He's got just a little bit of stubble. He's wearing like a nice shirt, but it's like half unbuttoned down, and you can see like chest hair. And on his right hand, he's got a very large ring, which is like one of the signet rings of House Vital. Okay. And so he doesn't notice you at first as you enter with your entourage. But Nalani does, and Nalani stands up, and she's like, kind of like looks, and for a second she looks like very happy to see you, and then like immediately the emotionless face that you've seen so many times from your father kind of like takes over, and she's like, "Sister, it has been so long since we last saw each other. Welcome home." And like Charles turns and he's like, "E? Is that you?"
Yeah.
And he like comes forward and like
just. Do I recognize him?
You do.
Okay.
He was a lot scrawnier the last time you saw him. He's definitely like hit the gym. Okay. And he's like like puberty was kind to him. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And he like embraces you and gives you like this like really big warm hug that maybe lingers with the familiarity of being friends, or maybe he's just that sort of guy now. Okay. And he's like I didn't even know you were back in town.
Just arrived.
He's like, "Where have you been all these years? I heard that you went and you basically disappeared overnight. I didn't even have the chance to say goodbye."
"I was staying with relatives after the passing of my mother."
And he's like, I and my deepest condolences about that, and your grandfather too, of course.
Yeah.
I attended your grandfather's funeral. Your mother's funeral, of course, was a more private affair, as is befitting of someone her position within the household, of course. But I am so happy to see you. We should celebrate. We should have a party. Like let House Vital greet the prodigal daughter of House Olafaren back to the city in style. And like Nalani's just like, "Oh, Charles, let's not get too ahead of ourselves." And he's like, Charles and I have actually been collaborating on a new fishing fleet. It's a collaboration between our two houses. A way to settle a dispute between who would claim the rights to fishing. We own the seas, of course, but House Vital owns the stomachs of the people of Erde. So we figured, me and Charles have been working very long hours to ensure that we, have this new joint venture that is fair and equitable for both houses. We've been working quite closely together. But Charles, if you would be so kind, I have not seen my sister in some time, and I wish to catch up. And he's like, oh, of course, I too have other business to attend. And he kind of goes and he, like, puts his hand on your shoulder. And he's like, but we do need to catch up. You know, a drink or, you know, and he's like, or a party. Like, we haven't attended a party together in years.
We can discuss this tomorrow.
He's like, tomorrow it is. I shall look forward to seeing you. And he takes his leave, and he's like, and so when the door closes, Nalani is still, like, holding herself, like, very primly, and she's like, Ella-san, and Ellie kind of, like, stiffens up at hearing her full name, and she's like, would you be so kind as to escort my sister's other guests elsewhere? I wish to speak to my sister alone. And, like, Ellie's just like, oh. And she's like, gives you this, like, look, and like, oh, okay. And she's like, come on, Teef, Kieran, you can, do you want me to, like, heal up that scar? And, like, Kieran's like, no, don't touch me. She's like, okay, she's like,
oh, and Teef?
And yes.
Can you pick up that fishbone that you threw behind the plant, please?
Where shall I put it? Behind another plant? Outside.
Ellie will show you where.
And she's like, oh my god. And, like, Ellie's like, you can't just throw trash. And, like, the door closes and you hear Ellie lecturing Teef on not throwing fish. And, like, the second, like, the doors close, like, Nalani, like, lets her down, guards down, and kind of, like, you know, gracefully walks over to you and just embraces you in a warm hug. She's like, I am so glad that you're here. When I was a bit confused at first when Father said that I wasn't to accompany him on that trip, but I realized, you know, that it was because you were coming home, so there would be no need for me to come and to see you this time because, you know, we'll be living in the same house once again, and this time I'm sure it'll be a lot more pleasant.
Hopefully, yes.
Yes, and she's like, I am so happy to have you back. You have no idea. Like, dealing with, you know, Charles and a dozen other, you know, lords and members of other houses, and it's so much. And I'm just so glad to have you here. So, and she kind of like, well, actually, you've kind of tucked away your dagger. She's like, so has Father told you what you're to do, with the house now?
Yes. I'm actually reporting to Tarl now.
And she's like, well, that's strange, because Tarl's the guard, and only blades report to the... Oh, you're a blade. So that's what you were doing with Uncle.
Let's not make that a thing, though.
That's fair. It does make more sense. So has Tarl assigned you to any tasks yet?
Father actually assigned me to a task for Tarl. Tarl still doesn't like me.
My uncle and my mother are very slow to forgive supposed affronts to their honor. I'm sure that Tarl will come around eventually once you show what you can do, of course.
Well, if you have the opportunity, put in another good word for me.
I will do so, of course.
I'm actually working on a mission related to last night.
Oh, the missing cargo.
Yeah, what do you know of it?
Well, I know that all I know is probably what you know. I don't know what this weapon is. Father only mentioned it in passing. I know that they retrieved it from the secondary from Olito, which is a smaller port city. Of course, you would know this. To the west, and that's kind of like on the very edge of Erde. That is about as far north and west as the Divine Light touches.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of like frontier country. But they brought it in, and it was supposed to be shipped tonight, and during the window in which it was, supposed to be delivered, it was taken from the ship, and that's all I know. Is there anything I can do to help?
Not at this point. I really need to know what it is before I can figure out why someone would have stolen it.
Unfortunately, I can't really assist. I know that I believe the weapon was found during an expedition of some kind.
Okay. Do you know who it was found by?
I don't know the details of that. Maybe some adventuring party to the west.
Not someone we had sent out.
No, I do know that we were the highest bidder.
Oh, okay.
To retrieve it. I know that several of the other houses likely knew of whatever this weapon was because there were multiple bids on it.
Okay.
So, she's like, so, tell me, have you visited the ship yet?
I have, yes.
How many people did we lose?
We didn't actually lose any.
She's like, well, that is both good and bad news. This likely means that whoever did it is one of the 5 houses. This is clearly the latest round of the great game. Did you find any clues?
I believe some sort of magic was involved to disrupt the guards from doing their jobs. The portmaster is currently talking to Tarl about some unsavory business that he's been part of.
Fizzlefish? That is his name? I'm not surprised about that. We were at least somewhat aware of his less illicit dealings. Between you and me, I had Tarl several months ago assign a second blade to make a second set of books for every ship that goes in and out of the harbor.
Gotcha.
So we knew of it, but
did that second blade hang around then?
No, ships can't enter the port of neutrality at night. So once they come in, in fact, I believe that our ship, came in literally right before the port was set to close.
Gotcha. Who is this blade that keeps track of stuff?
That would be Blade Jarl. I could set up a meeting for you, of course. He is actually
Jarl?
Jarl.
Okay.
And he actually is has a room at the Whale Meat Inn.
Whale meat.
Mm-hmm. And actually, it's very interesting that you. Speaking of whale meat, I meant to mention this to you. Charles is not actually the only member of your as you called them, the Bastards Club, I believe, who's recently in town. Nifahelda of House. Oh shoot, what house is she from? Son of a bitch. Give me 1 second.
Language. And how do I spell that?
Nifa Helda. And she is of House Censor.
Censor?
Censir. Sensir.
Okay.
And she's actually, curiously enough, stationed, has been staying at the Whale Meat Inn for several days now.
Well, then I guess maybe we might need to head down there and have a drink. Maybe we'll invite Charles.
Well, Well, I don't know if Charles would join you at the whale meet in the last few years, he's gained a small measure of influence within the nobility, and I don't think he would be caught dead at a place like the whale meet. And he tends to drink at much finer establishments, even if he can't afford it.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I suppose you also have other meetings and agendas.
Oh, no, always. But if you ever need anything, please just let me know. Okay. And I will be, happy to assist you, of course.
Thank you, sister.
It's so wonderful to see you.
You too.
So with that, you leave. Would you like to bring anybody with you to the whale meet in?
I'll give I'll give Ellie an option, because if this is like a rattier area, like I suppose it is, I don't know if she wants to go.
She's like, no, as much as I would love to taste and she's like, ale? Grog?
Yeah.
I think I do have to say my evening prayers. While it's spring, the cold Lord demands our attention year round. Even when it is not winter. But
gotcha.
I will see you tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. What do I do with Teef?
What do you do?
I don't know what to do with Teef. So do I have my own quarters?
Yeah, you have your own house.
Oh, I have my own house.
Or not your own house.
Oh,
you have your own bedroom.
Okay.
Within, it's actually located on the 3rd story. So there's this very long, the long hall, which kind of serves as a gallery and stuff. Your room is located off of that in the top floor, by your mother's old room.
Gotcha. Where would Teeth and what's his name? Kieran be staying?
Teef and Kieran, they'd probably be put up in the guards' chambers. So yeah.
I will take Kieran with me because he can blend in a little bit more.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell Teef. I'm gonna pull Teef aside. I'm like, Teef, I have a very important thing for you to do. Can you do whatever I ask you?
Whatever you require, mistress.
No matter what it is.
No matter what, for the safety of my tribe.
Wonderful. I need you to go back to the guard's house, wash up, and get some really good sleep. All night. Don't get out of bed unless you have to go to the bathroom.
To bathe myself. This shall be arduous indeed, but I shall do it.
Wonderful.
For the mistress. And he's goes and he's still holding the fish bones. He's like, come along, friend. We have a long and dangerous journey in front of us. And he kind of clambers off. And Kieran's like, so, you hang out with kobolds often, Lady Estelia?
No. As a matter of fact, that's the first one.
Are they all like that?
Yeah.
Oh, God. It's well, so to a shady
yeah,
thing.
It'll be fun.
This is not exactly what I expected to be doing on my first day, but if that's what you demand, that's what I shall do.
It'll be fun.
And he's like, it's called the Whale Meat Inn.
Yeah. Get it? Whale meat? Whale meat?
I don't actually know what's that supposed to be a reference of.
Well, you have whale meat, but then you can meet at the whale.
And he just kind of stares at you, and he's just like, all right, well, let's get going. Before you guys leave, he kind of grabs a cloak and hood to disguise, hide himself.
I'm gonna run up to my room.
Mm-hmm.
Do the same thing, but I will grab my signet ring as well.
So you do. You also find on your bed actually a interesting gift for you.
Oh.
It is a cloak and hood, there's just a note, and it's from your sister, and she's said she knew that you were a blade, and she's like, this. All it says is like, this might come in handy, and you take a look, and you on the inside of the cloak appears to be a pouch, and you open it up, and you like look inside of it, and it appears to have no bottom to it.
Ah, a pocket.
It is a cloak with a bag of holding sewn into it.
That's pretty nifty.
So you can place all your weapons in there, and it
Nice.
looks like you are coming into something unarmed.
Very nice. Just a basic cloak?
Yeah, and you also have the bag of holding, which I already put in your inventory for you.
I see that.
Thank you, D&D Beyond.
Cool. I have like no other special clothes on. Cool. I'm really prepared tonight. Cool. So I guess we should go. I've got my signet ring on.
Okay.
Mind you, I'm keeping it kind of like turned over, so it's not like an obvious thing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I need it, and then I can use that power, I guess. Let's go.
Okay. So you head back to the Port of Neutrality, and the white meat or the whale meat inn is conveniently located right across from where your family's ship was docked the night before. And glancing up at it, you could tell that someone, depending on what room they were in, probably could have had a very clear view. So you walk inside. How are you trying to keep a low profile?
For the moment, yeah.
Okay. Give me a quick stealth check.
Stealth.
What'd you get?
7.
Okay. So you walk inside, and there's an immediate like hush as you and Karen walk in.
Cool.
And everyone's kind of like looking at you with your hood up, trying to keep a low profile, and Karen just like kind of like leans in. He's like, everyone's staring at us. And he's just like, what should we do?
Let's just go get a drink.
He's like, yes, a drink! And everyone's just like, and they all kind of like turn and start drinking.
Yeah, I'll take my hood off since they already know I'm there.
So you go up to the tavern, the tavern keeper, and he's like, yeah, and he's kind of like, what can I get you, miss?
I would like that ale, please.
And he's like, one, that ale, coming right up, and goes and puts one down, and Kieran's like, I don't, and like the tavern keeper's already like walked away. He's like,
I slide it over to him.
So as Kieran's like drinking, on your other side, someone just kind of like stands next to you, and he appears also, curiously enough, has a hood over his head, and he's just like, back corner now.
I elbow Kieran.
And Kieran looks over and he's like,
bring your ale.
Oh, where are we going? And like
back corner.
The figure is like very tall, and he kind of like walks very.
I saw nothing of the face.
It was actually, give me a perception check.
17.
You did notice a couple of things. First of all, his skin appears to be a dark blue, almost black. Also, you did appear to notice that he had silver hair.
Long?
Hard to tell.
Okay.
because it was tied up and had the cloak.
Okay, but I can't tell, anything else.
Nope.
Cool, and he's taller than me?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to walk on back.
So sitting in the corner are 2 dwarves.
Okay.
One of which you recognize as Niflhelda. Niflhelda has, kind of like bronze skin. She's actually wearing, she's also got a cloak on, but her hood is down. She's just sitting there, and she's got like 4 or 5 beers sitting in front of her. Her hair is done up in ponytails, and the ponytails are actually tied underneath her chin. So it kind of looks like she's almost has a beard. And Niflhelda looks at you, and she's expressionless for a moment, and then she just has a big grin, and she's like, what in blazes are you doing here?
I heard that you were here.
That is a very interesting thing, and who did you hear that from?
My sister?
Maybe?
Don't remember.
And he's like,
I'm looking here, and I don't remember.
It was.
Okay, cool.
And he's like, of course your sister would know where I'm at. She always had a way about her. Well...
And I figured this would be much more fun than trying to get a drink with Charles.
Indeed. Yes, Charles is also in town, I hear. She's like, it's a funny thing. Would you like to take a seat with me?
Sure.
She's like, so, what brings you back? I haven't heard from you in 6 years.
My father sent me away after the death of my mother and grandfather to stay with some distant family.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
But I'm older now, and it's time to rejoin the family.
And he clearly, still clearly cares for your well-being as you're here with one slightly oblivious guard. And, Karen's just sitting there. He's like, I'm not oblivious. What the hell? Karen's just kind of like, what? And he's like, so, I'm assuming that means that you can still handle yourself, then?
I always could.
Well, I'm just a bit curious if, your father recognizes that as well.
Well, do you think he would have sent a bodyguard if he had recognized it?
Well, my mother recognizes my talents, and yet here I am with this lot and the tall one as well. And you see, and now you can get a clearer look at this other figure, and he's a drow.
Okay.
And she's like, well, I'm actually on business as well, but I can mix a little bit of business with catching up with old friends. I'm actually trying to do your house a little bit of a solid right now.
What would that be?
And she points over, and she's like, we've got our eye on this one over here. And she points, and there's another figure who's just kind of sitting there crouched over. Go ahead and give me a perception check.
And then quick side question.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that there's drow in town, do they all have silver hair or no?
Yes. The drow, that is a typical trait for them, as they typically have.
Perception 9.
You can tell that he also appears to be a drow. But other than that, it's hard to make anything up. He's kind of just too many people in the way. You're only catching glances of him.
Why would you be keeping an eye on this drow?
Well, from what I hear, he has something that belongs to your father.
Oh, something stolen last night.
So you do know about that, eh?
I've heard.
She's like, yes, we have a vested interest in making sure that his employer doesn't get a hands on it. Prefer that your father also not get your hands on it, but, we also see the value in giving something back that your father values. a favor
looks
for
good.
the future. Exactly.
That's fair.
My mother, she recognizes sometimes when to stab your enemies in the back and when to hold them by the hand. Not that we would ever call you enemies.
I understand.
She's like, and I would never call you an enemy too. Even though I guess since you've been off with distant relatives wherever that may be, probably haven't heard. I'm legit now.
You are.
I am. Me mom and me dad, we they hitched up after me mom's dad finally me mom's husband passed away.
Oh.
Fell down an elevator shaft onto some arrows. Tragedy.
Wow, both you and Charles are legit now. Feeling like I'm the odd one out.
Well, I'm sure they'll, find some uses for you here soon. Don't worry, just because I'm not a bastard in name anymore doesn't mean that I'm still not a member of the Bastards Club.
Any one of our other friends in town?
Nope, it's just the two of us right now. I'm sure, once word starts spreading that you're back, I'm sure everyone else will come and visit you too.
Where are in this bar? Is it very crowded?
It's pretty crowded. Yeah.
Are there any empty seats?
Not a lot. The table that the drow's standing at, there's an empty seat, but that's it.
Just one.
Yeah.
Okay. Is he facing away from us?
He's kind of facing the door right now. He's kind
Gotcha.
of appears to be waiting for somebody.
Can I angle myself so that I'm like between the door and him, but like at the bar?
Yeah, of course.
So that I can see the face a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
and then also be right there between the door and him.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna signal the bartender.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that Jarl has been hanging out here at the whale meet inn while he watches over the port, I'll say, I'll have another beer, and I would like to speak to Jarl.
And he's like, well, then, if you can find him, you can talk to him.
Where does he usually hang out?
I make it a point not to know where my patrons. I do know that a Jarl has been coming and going in here. If you know that he's been coming and going here, I have no qualms saying that either, but my customers pay me gold not to tell them where it's at. But if you see him, tell him that I said hi and that he owes me 5 gold.
I pay the 5 gold.
And he's like, well then, I do not believe he has shown up this evening.
Okie dokie. Okay, I guess I'll stand there and drink with Kieran.
Okay.
As I'm assuming we're waiting for someone to come in.
Mm-hmm. Are you sticking close to Niflhelda, or are you...
She's over in the far corner.
Yeah.
I want to be between the bar and, like, at the bar between the door and the
before
stranger.
Before you head off, Niflhelda goes, now, whoever walks in through the door, don't move to confront them too quickly. She's like, let me handle this.
Oh, okay. I might block the door.
She's like, sure. And
I'll have Kieran block the door.
she's like, yeah. She's like, that wall of meat might be good for that. And Kieran's like, come on, like, I'm right here. So after about 15-20 minutes, a figure makes his way to the drow. Give me a quick perception check.
Natural 19.
Nice.
21.
So
Not much.
The figure is deliberately trying not to be conspicuous. In fact, like, you didn't even see him coming through the door, but as he takes a seat, he holds up his right hand, and you can see a very large gold signet ring belonging to House Vital.
House Vital,
And
which is the same house as what's his face?
And it's the same
Charles.
build. It's Charles.
Okay.
So the pair, talk for a little bit, and then you kind of look, and like, now that you're kind of like watching a little bit more intently, you notice that this drow has one eye swollen shut.
Okay.
So they, after a couple of minutes, they stand up and make their way to the staircase, which is where all the bedrooms are at on the second story.
Now, have I ever been in this establishment before?
No.
I asked Kieran, does this have another exit?
He's like, I don't know. This is my second day in town.
Oh, well, you're not much use, are you?
And you see Niflhelde kind of like stand up, and the dwarf that's accompanying her starts to make his way towards the door as she and the drow start to head upstairs.
I'll give her like time, but then I'll slowly creep up myself.
So as you get to the second story, Kieran following behind, you hear a shattering of windows, and then the sound of Niflhelde just cursing very loudly.
I'm gonna send Kieran outside.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking that they may have left through a window.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna run upstairs and just lay eyes on her.
Mm-hmm.
Is she okay?
She is. You do notice there is a bound figure that is in the room with her, and the window is indeed broken open. And she's sitting there, and she's like shouting out through the window at probably the dwarf.
Like her friend dwarf?
Yeah.
But there's one figure bound.
Yeah, and the drow is her drow is already going and like untying him. And like he's kind of like, this dude is an elf, probably like maybe a wood elf, or maybe even possibly a highbound elf. And he's kind of like, and as like the gag is like comes away, and he just like looks over, and he's like thank you, and he's like, and then he like makes eye contact with you, and he's like, Lady Estelia, what are you doing here?
Wait, he recognizes me?
He does recognize you.
And I don't know who he is?
You do not. And he's, as like the drow like, starts to like cut him loose, he's like goes up, and he's like I am Jarl, a blade of your house.
Oh, you're Jarl.
Another drow, and he's like, no, and he's like turns, he's like, no offense, I was accosted 2 nights ago by a drow, and he got the upper hand on me. He kept me alive, probably knowing that I'm a blade, but he's kind of had me bound and gagged for the last 2 days. And it's all kind of a blur. He had some, I believe his knife might have some sort of sleeping magic to it. And Niflhelde like ducks back in. She's like, well, the bastard's gone. Both of them.
Is Kieran coming back up?
And like after like a minute or two, Kieran and the dwarf come up, and like Kieran is just like winded, and he's headed to the east, not towards the city gates, I don't think. And he's like, no, and Niflhelde's like, no. They're heading back to the Vital family compound. And she's like, well, this is going to make retrieving this weapon a bit more interesting.
At least we have an idea of who is involved.
Indeed, but, breaking into one of the 5 houses, that's never an easy task. She's like, so unless you know some way to get in there,
I think I have an idea.
What's your idea?
Well, I mean, Charles wanted to have a drink and have a party. Let him host it.
She's like, I do like that idea. Charles does like to have a party.
He does like parties.
We haven't seen him in quite some time.
I think it's about time.
She's like, indeed. She has a big grin on her face. And that's where we will end for tonight.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So that was our first episode of Dungeon Date. Thank you for joining us. You can find me on Twitter at @CHofferCbus, and you can find my D&D articles at comicbook.com.
You can find my Twitter at dhoffer90, and then Dungeon Date at Dungeon D, capital D, and then the number 8. So we'll be back next week.
Yep, we'll be back.
And I'll keep learning out how to play this solo edition. And we'll see how it goes.
Yep, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a great night.